Hey everyone, welcome back to the X Ring. I hope you're doing well this weekend. So I just wanted to follow up with everyone on how my first Precision Rifle Rimfire match went. Went today, it was pouring down rain, but we had an awesome time. I learned a lot, but I want this, I hate match footage more than anything. Maybe you guys can learn from it. I will include some of the stages here towards the end, and we can talk about some things, but I want it to be educational for everyone that's watching, in case there is one close to you or one that you want to try, what you can expect. So basically we arrived, of course, you're gonna see a lot of strangers and everything else, and they were handing out match booklets. And those match booklets have the stage descriptions, pretty much in detail about what you can expect as far as stages and everything else. Go ahead and find out what squad you're in, if you don't already know, and find out which stage you're on. So, enough of, shaking hands and everything else. It's time to get down to business, right? So what you want to do is go ahead and find that data that you need for that first course of fire. Go ahead and get that out of the way so it's in your mind. Don't wait till the last minute. And if you're a newer shooter, that's one of the biggest things I see is wrapping your head around what's coming up next or positions or things like that. So the very first stage of the day was, of course, the long range. Now you got to remember we're shooting 22 rimfire. And you're typically going to be shooting something like a 40 grainer or something like that. It's going to be subsonic. Hypervelocity or high velocity ammo doesn't really work that well. You have too much variation in your velocities to really make good solid hits. So I think we started at like 230 and then worked our way out to like 365 yards. Now, what you have to realize, and keep this in mind, guys, your elevation, if you're shooting like a 6.5 Creedmoor at 700 yards, might be around 5 mils. On a 22 rimfire at 200 yards, you're going to already be in the 7 mils, okay? So it's really better training, in my opinion, because the slightest breeze or slightest gust of wind, you're going to be holding 1.5 mils of wind. And in order to get that with, let's say, a 6.5 Creedmoor or something, you're going to need to have some substantial wind, full value, 15-mile-an-hour winds and some distance along with that. So it is great training. You're going to do the exact same positional type things, and you might learn something. So once you get all your dope and everything else, figure out what bags you're going to use. What's going to be the most stable position? Let's go ahead and show some of that match footage from this long-range stage. Let's see what it looks like.
Stand by. Engage.
I was wondering don't do what Dad did. You shot.
Impact.
You can do that.
Safety on, butt down. Impact. Impact.
Mag change.
Impact.
How many more do I have on that?
That's it. Move.
You ready?
37 seconds. Impact. Impact. Impact.
Attaboy. Well done. One more, 3 rounds.
Double feet. Drop the mag. Drop the mag. Both backs, mag out. It's all gone. Ah.
Impact. Impact. 7 seconds to go. Good shoot.
Thank you.
9.
Look at that.
Now, fortunately, the first stage for us was an all-prone stage. You're not going to be that lucky on most of the stages. If I'm not mistaken, I think that was the only prone stage. Everything else, you were actually moving around and, trying to get your gear and all of that. Now, the stages were typically 90 seconds. I think we had 1 or 2 of the 120-second stages. We had people as far as Texas, big contingent from Virginia. Big shout out to those guys. Super, super, super good guys. And I had a great time. I really did. I learned quite a bit. There was one guy that we had to shoot off the center of a tank trap, the big wooden structure. Well, let's take a look and see what he brought.
See, guys, you can always learn something.
Oh, yeah.
Never even seen one of those in my life.
He called it a cheater bar is what he called it.
PNTC bar.
What's that?
All right. Shooter ready. Stand by. Engage.
Look at that.
Really still shooting right.
All right, guys, so you can definitely see what a difference that makes because you basically just set it up there and it has barbs in it and it won't slide down and you have a perch for your rifle to rest. So I'm not going to say it's a gear race. You want to make sure you have good gear. What I saw a lot of were people using tripods on the rear. So if they had a stage where they were unbalanced or up high, they would take the bipod or the tripod and they would hold it, and that makes you pretty steady. But remember, you're going to be giving up some time for that stability. All in all, I shot really well, but what I didn't do, and guys, please take note of this. If you watched the cornfield video, I got all the dope from 50, 100, 150, 200, 253, all the way out to 400 yards. I did it in 50-yard increments. That was a huge mistake because many of the stages we were shooting inside of 100 yards. And if you get into those ranges where you're like, the difference between a 50-yard zero on a 22 and 100 yards is about 1.8 mils or something. It depends on your rifle and everything else, but it's quite a bit. So what they'll do is they'll place targets, and we mean 1-inch circles or smaller. In some cases, they were little 1/4-inch strips, and they'll have those at like 62 yards or like 87 yards. And what you don't realize is that in that span between 50 and 100, there are some huge variances of like, 3-4 tenths of a mil just inside of those. So a lot of that you're guessing because your step, if you're using a Kestrel, it will only go down to every 10 yards. It's not like you're going to be able to go down to every single yard. So make sure you get that inside dope. Get those zeros from, or know what your holds are if you were at, let's say, 20 yards, 25. I would probably do it, if I were to do this again, I'd probably do it every 5 yards and just get good solid holds with the same lot of ammo, or good solid numbers rather. But let's look at some more footage.
Thank you.
Of course, we're starting on the long range stage.
Yep.
Good job, Justin. You're the timekeeper.
Yeah, y'all gotta coach me through this.
Stand by. Impact. Impact.
That used to be the sorriest ammo on planet Earth.
Impact. 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 Good shooting. Ready? Stand by. Engage. Impact. Impact.
You don't have to run it line range. You have to set it out there where you can go down to the creek and shoot across the whole hillside. Seriously. But you don't, here's the thing. You can't shoot off the tank trap at the house. What makes you right there in the grass.
Impact.
Put a gun on, you stand on it.
Where else could you hear a conversation about where are we going to put the tank trap?
She gets no practice, no shooting, no anything done.
Impact.
Drives him crazy because I had 30
Impact.
off the back check, 50, 89, 100, 125, 165.
Impact. Impact.
No, he's filming it. It can rain, it's covered.
The tank trap really ought to go on deck.
Impact.
Tank trap on the deck. Well, it's between
Impact.
the deck.
Good run.
All right, so by far, John and I showed up with probably the two most inexpensive rifles out there. I will tell you, I did mount up the Burris XTR3 yesterday, and I was extremely satisfied with it today. The clarity, it never fogged up. Dials, I just love how tactile they feel. They have very positive clicks. They don't feel mushy at all. And like I said, my only thing with it is I wish it had illumination because it did get dark because of the rain on one stage, and it would have actually been a little beneficial to have some illumination there. I don't know if they make a model in the XTR3 that does, but it worked really well for me today. Let's take a look at some more footage. Got some rain, got some great people out here, some awesome shooting.
Engage. Impact.
I'll get it.
Impact.
You know what I'm saying? Right down where you have options.
Impact. 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 Impact.
See, when you don't shoot this game, you don't have mag extensions.
25 seconds. Plenty of time. Impact. Impact. On the buzzer. On the buzzer.
All right, I hope you guys are enjoying that footage. I hope you enjoyed that review of the match. Let's see how it finished up.
Engage. Impact. 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 Impact.
Got one in the chamber. Got one in the chamber.
Impact. Impact.
Tom,
Impact. 5 seconds.
55?
Yep. Take a nap. Impact. 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 Impact.
Your magazine's working on me all right.
Engage. Impact.
Hit, impact.
Impact.
Just out of 5 o'clock.
Here's the top. Impact. Read this.
When you're ready, buttons up.
Impact. Impact. 45 seconds.
Plenty of time, bro. Plenty of time.
Ready? Stand by.
Pack.
Impact.
Pack.
20 seconds.
Pack.
Impact.
All right, guys. So the talent at this match was unbelievable. The match director that put it on was actually a national rimfire champion. I think he actually finished third in nationals like 3 weeks ago. Mr. Simmons. I think he's well known within the PRS community, but he did an excellent job. Big shout out to Frank over at VOD in Old Fort for having the match. I think they're planning on doing that about every 2 months now. And I will probably attend some more. I don't think I'm going to spend any more money in my rifles or anything like that. You know, most of the rifles I saw, you were looking at all total, they were probably $5,000. A lot of MPAs, a lot of voodoos, things like that. I'm not going to spend that on a 22. As much fun as it was good enough to do with a little CZ 455 that I bought for my daughter back when she was 9 years old. Just threw an MDT chassis on there and it worked out well. I will tell you, you do want to invest in a really good level because it is very, very critical, not only in long range shooting, but even for the rimfire. Just the slightest bit of cant can throw you off substantially. So that's important to pay attention to that. Also, make sure you're trying to get the same lot of ammo and make sure your rifle likes it. If you want to be competitive, like we all do, you don't go to these matches to lose. Make sure that at 50 yards, your rifle is going to at least hold like a 1-inch circle. And maybe realistic all the way out to 100, from 50 all the way out to 100, 1 inch to 1.5 inches. If you can't hold that, you're probably going to have a hard time with any of the closer targets because the targets are tiny. It's not like a silhouette match, but especially when you start to get the distances out there, make note and pay attention to your spin drift because it does come into play quite a bit. There were some today I was holding 1.2 mils and it didn't even feel like the wind was blowing.
Yeah, is he the one that got his hair wet? Oh, Gabby. Look at it.
Third overall.
Hey. Raymond.
Chris, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
So I hope you guys enjoyed that review of the first PRS rimfire match that I've ever shot, or precision rifle match, rimfire match. It was a great time. I'll do it again. Guys, I hope you have a great weekend. Like, share, and subscribe. We'll talk to you soon.